morning, good afternoon or good evening, and welcome to the EGU podcast for awakening and emerging entrepreneurs. We deliver gold nuggets weekly on mindset, energy, business and all things spiritual to help you thrive. And today in particular, we're going to help you get around energy zappers, adrenal burnout and how to turn them around so you have more vitality and spring in your step. I'm Michelle Reinhardt, and I have a guest with me today who was featured on the Today Tonight show in 2010 as a victim of burnout and chronic fatigue in her 20s. She's turned that around completely by becoming a naturopath and women's health coach. Has been counselling as a naturopath for nearly 18 years, and she's helped thousands of people over the years restore their energy and vitality. And online, she helps busy business women have the ultimate energy and health they need to succeed and thrive in business and life. So it is with great joy I welcome to the show Kate Driver. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome, Kate. It's a pleasure. It's been a long time coming. I'm sure it will be worth the wait.
Yeah, I hope so too for everyone.
Yeah. Was there anything you'd like to add to that brief intro, Kate?
No, that was a lovely intro. Thank you. No, I think that was well said, and just that I'm very dedicated naturopath, and I know that that's what I should be doing in my life. I don't have any doubts about it, and it led me to here on my journey because of all the health issues that I suffered from in my 20s, and doctors didn't help me. Nobody really helped me apart from naturopaths, and I was so impressed, and I thought I waited probably about 5 years until I was nearly 30 to start studying naturopathy, but I knew that that's what I needed to do, because I just had my life turned around when I started seeing a naturopath. It's amazing. So, yeah,
it's beautiful when we receive that clarion call. It's absolutely beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's help these guys and girls with our tips or your tips to beat burnout. And I'd love to know, first of all, like, in order to beat burnout, we need to understand it. We need to understand the causes of it. We need to understand what's going on. So can you tell me what the most common complaint you hear in your clinic is?
Well, people don't generally, I suppose, come and see me because they're burnt out, but the most common is tiredness or exhaustion or fatigue. And that really is, even if people come to see me for some other reason, and that could be a digestive issue, or maybe they've got arthritis or high blood pressure or a skin problem, they sort of forget that, oh, yeah, that's right, I'm always tired. They just accept it and it just becomes part of their lives. But I would say, probably, I would be guessing saying this now, but maybe half of my clients would be exhausted or fatigued in some way, but they sort of forget because they live with it and they just assume that's normal. Everybody's tired, everybody's busy, and that's okay, but it's not. So that would be one of the most common things.
Yeah, look, I hear what you're saying. I have clients that come to me and they think it's normal and okay to have a headache all day, every day. And it's it's not okay. That's not the way that we should be living life, and we shouldn't have to push through that. So it is time for people to dig a little deeper if they're uncomfortable and not really loving their life.
Oh, sure, and that's what happens. People don't end up loving their life, do they? Because they don't have any joy. They're dragging themselves around all the time, and they haven't got the energy to actually properly enjoy it and be mindful and actually be there to enjoy it. They're thinking about probably, oh no, when can I have my next coffee, or when can I go to sleep?
Yeah.
So really sort of focus on the day, and they're just dragging themselves around. So I see that really commonly, and it may be that sometimes a client may not tell me that until the third visit even. They might say, oh, actually, my energy's better. And I would say, actually, I didn't know you were tired. You didn't mention it. But they forget that that's one of the most important things, which means their body isn't functioning at an optimal level. So all the organs aren't functioning, their brain's not functioning, and it can lead to longer-term health issues if they don't address it.
Yeah, that's exactly right, because our body's job is to highlight to us what's out of balance. Yeah, and if we're not listening to it, it's going to keep hitting us until it really knocks us flat on our back. And you and I have both been there, so we know exactly what that looks like, unfortunately. But that's why we do what we do now, to help others from getting there. Hey.
Yeah, sure.
So, Kate, yeah, what are the biggest energy zappers?
Well, the biggest one, which may not be surprising to most people, is stress. And people may say to me, even in the clinic, well, I'm not stressed, but stress comes in many forms, and that's what people have to realise, that stress just doesn't have to be that they're feeling stressed, that that's an emotional state of being. It can be inflammation in the body from a health issue they may have, like arthritis or a digestive issue. That inflammation is a stress to the body, or a disease, that's a stress to the body. It can be environmental, so it can be like that, they're a hairdresser or a mechanic and they get exposed to toxins and chemicals. That is a stress ongoing, and that's every day that they're getting exposed to these toxins. That's a stress. Yeah. It may be that travel for an hour and a half to work in the morning and in the evening, and that's a stress, or that they work in a nightclub or run a really busy restaurant or something like that, and there's lots of noise and stress to the senses all the time. That's a stress that's environmental. But then there's also physical stress, where people may not get enough sleep, they may over-exercise or under-exercise, they may be very sedentary and not realise that you need to actually use your energy and exercise to promote energy in your metabolism. So that can be a stress as well, under or over-exercising. So it can come in many forms.
Yeah, I'm hearing you, and that you've just opened the door to probably, I'd say, 99.9% of the population, because we live a very, very busy life, don't we? And we're juggling balls all day, every day, especially, we've got that business, we've got kids, we've got our relationships, we've got, we're mothers, we're daughters, we're wives, we're all of these things to all of these people. And unless you've got a balance in your life, then something invariably does give away, and often, sadly, it's our health.
Yes, and that's where, and then the busyness part is when people are running their own businesses and they've got their family and everything else to do, then it does become just being over busy and over multitasking, because we don't just multitask. We're ridiculous multitasking nowadays with all the technology that is around us, and that things that we have available to us. So that's even worse as well. So technology, and then that leads to people that they're not sleeping properly or not getting enough. I have so many people that say to me, well, I'm okay with 5 or 6 hours, but that isn't good enough. So people don't realise that the busier you are, the more sleep you need. So if you're only getting 5 or 6 hours a night and you're really, really busy, that's not good enough, because your body detoxifies overnight, and your body the hormones start rebalancing overnight as well, and our cells rejuvenate or regenerate overnight. So we do actually need to have a certain amount for all of these processes to happen properly. So people say, oh, well, I'm too busy. By the time I put the kids to bed and I've got 2 hours to stay up, and they stay up till midnight, and then they might get up at 6 in the morning to get the kids ready, then and then start their business straight away as soon as they're at school. But they just don't. They don't go to bed earlier and get that extra sleep when they really need it.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. But why can't people sleep if they're so tired?
Because now this is partly why people get burnout, is because the adrenal glands, which are the little glands that sit on top of your kidneys, they produce your fight and flight hormones. So when people are busy and when they're stressed or in this fight and flight mode all the time, our body doesn't recognise the difference between the different stresses. So it will produce these stress hormones as a reaction to, like I said, driving to work, or if there's an allergy. So if somebody's got hay fever for half the year, then the adrenal glands will produce more of these stress hormones to counteract the allergies. It can be so many different things. And if they're constantly in this stress mode, then it's very hard for the adrenal glands to stop producing, particularly the cortisol, at night time. So they may feel tired, but they may feel wired. And then melatonin can't be produced when we have high cortisol. So melatonin is the sleepy hormone that we produce at night time, usually just as starts as the sun starts going down. And then the cortisol will lower. So what happens when people are really tired generally is that they have low cortisol during the day, so their energy is really low. And cortisol stimulates our metabolism and other processes in the body to keep us active during the day. So it should be fairly high during the day. It has a rhythm as well, but it should be fairly high. And then if people can't sleep at night time and wind down, it stays high. they can't produce melatonin, so they feel wired and tired, and they can lay awake all night because they're not producing this melatonin. So a good way around this to look after the adrenal glands and to try and reduce the cortisol levels at night time by taking certain supplements, but meditating and relaxing for at least a few hours before you go to sleep. Maybe earlier in the evening you do some exercise to reduce the cortisol levels, to burn up any of the stress hormones that you've created during the day. You can take some supplements like magnesium or have a relaxing bath. But those sort of things can actually reduce cortisol, so then you can properly produce your melatonin to get you into the sleep mode. And that's good for wired and tired really commonly. So you want to flip that around. You want to produce melatonin at night and cortisol during the day, and not keep producing the cortisol at night time, which is what we sort of call, adrenal fatigue is a bit of a commonly used term, but it's really adrenal dysfunction that we are talking about, or the HPA dysfunction, which is the hypothalamus, which is a gland in your brain. The pituitary is another gland, and then the adrenals. So these glands all talk to each other. They send each other hormones, and if one goes out of whack, like the adrenals, and the whole of these hormones, messengers, hormones of glands are sending to each other, get upset. So the other gland that actually then can sometimes cause a problem, particularly in women, is the thyroid gland. So we end up with perhaps adrenal dysfunction that causes all these symptoms to begin with, and then it can lead to more serious things because then it starts affecting other glands. So if it affects the pituitary and the hypothalamus, then you may get things like depression or problems with producing melatonin or other hormones. And if the thyroid gets affected, which is very common in women, after about the mid-40s, I see it very commonly. Doctors don't tend to pick it up because they don't do thyroid tests as much anymore. So that can be a problem for a lot of women too. So when the thyroid's not functioning properly, because the adrenal glands have been under-functioning for such a long time, then they can end up with cardiovascular issues or weight gain. Their metabolism slows down. They can get all of the, even depression is associated with thyroid dysfunction or underactive thyroid as well. And there's a lot of people that have it running through their family they're not even aware of, that nobody's being diagnosed. So I just see that very commonly.
Yeah.
Adrenal and thyroid work together, and that they're the ones that both get will suffer when there's long-term stress.
Yeah, I'm sitting here ticking all my boxes here. I've been through the adrenal fatigue. I've had an operation on my thyroid gland.
Okay.
Yeah, so and it was at a time when I was under an enormous amount of stress and pressure in my life with our business, which was failing at the time, and little kids. And it was just, I can remember just thinking it was just too hard. It was just too hard, and I was just so sick. And look, for any of our listeners that are feeling like you're resonating with this, I know we've got a pretty heavy energy in here at the moment, so we're going to flip it over to help you figure out how to balance it so that we can get you up and dancing again and having some fun in your life, because life shouldn't be that hard. Yeah. No, it shouldn't. So how does stress actually affect people's energy? So we've spoken about the big umbrella of stress, and to a certain extent we need a little bit of stress in our lives to get us out of bed in the morning. Yeah. So there's the good stress and there's bad stress as well. But how does it actually affect our energy? What's going on when that's all happening?
Well, like you mentioned, adrenal fatigue, our adrenal glands don't function as efficiently, and they may be underproducing the cortisol, or your body can actually become resistant to the cortisol we keep producing. So it's a bit like insulin resistance, which hopefully people understand insulin resistance, which can happen when people have long-term stress as well.
Sorry, I was going to say, can you just expand on that for those that may not?
So insulin resistance is where the body's, when we eat a certain food, everything gets turned into glucose when we eat, and glucose needs a hormone called insulin that's produced by the pancreas to unlock the glucose so we can utilise that glucose for energy. And we do that normally, hopefully through our whole life. But if some sort of stress sets the body off, or there's an inflammatory reaction, or there's predisposition in the family, then our cells in our body that normally would unlock this insulin and help us use the glucose from food, they become resistant to it, so they don't react properly.
Okay.
Which means that the insulin might be being produced by the pancreas still, but our cells say, no, I can't work with you, don't let me in, I'm not interested. And then the glucose doesn't get from that food, and basically people start putting on weight. And the most common area is around the belly, midriff, and that's what a lot of people start complaining of, the middle-age spread.
Okay.
Doesn't have to happen. So there's also cortisol resistance too. So it's a similar thing that the body just does not. Cortisol helps us deal with stress properly. So if people feel like this is what happens along with long-term stress, that all of a sudden they think that everything overwhelms them, they feel like they can't cope anymore, and they just feel like they're irritable, moody, they can't sleep, they're tired all day, everything becomes too hard, everything goes out of whack. They might get digestive issues and hormonal problems as well. Maybe if they're still menstruating, if they're women, that goes out of whack as well. And then the body just basically says, well, okay, you've got to slow down. And if you don't slow down, then, you're going to get more and more illnesses or ailments. So, yeah, the body just becomes resistant to this cortisol, and then it doesn't help our body cope with the stress. It's a bit like a buffer system, so it doesn't buffer the stress for us, so we actually feel like we're getting through it. And this is where like naturopathy can help, because we look at what we can do to help those people buffer it if it's not happening naturally in the body, and strengthen the hypothalamus and the pituitary and the adrenals and the thyroid. But we always start with the adrenal glands, because they're the ones that tend to get a bit of a hammering when people are busy and stressed. And so that's where we start.
Okay, so where do we start? What do we do to start on the road to recovery?
Well, reduce stress. And just look at the ways that you can. So, and one big thing I think, if people have a lot of stress and they say, well, I can't because I've got my business, my family, everything else I have to do.
Yeah.
Then just take some time out every day to relax and look after yourself, because you just do need that time out for your brain and your body to recharge. And when you don't, and you're just constantly on the go, then it just means that those stress hormones are very high all the time, and it causes your adrenals to dysfunction a lot more. So you want to reduce stress and reduce busyness, and try and have fun every day and have a laugh. So you're producing all those good endorphins and those good hormones, so you can actually feel good and have fun. And then you want to look at eating properly. I mean, that's, nourishment comes mainly from our food. If we can avoid taking nutrients, and we can do it through food, but that just means also eating organic if you possibly can. And it's easier to get organic food nowadays because it's a lot cheaper and it's everywhere. And we get more nutrients from our organic food. So eating regularly, a lot of people I see don't eat breakfast, and that puts more strain on the adrenal glands. So these stress hormones actually become, the adrenal glands produce more cortisol to try and bring up the glucose levels or your blood sugar levels, because you're not eating. And I see this all the time, that people say, I just don't eat till lunch, I haven't got time, or I'm hungry. And then that causes more adrenal fatigue and adrenal burnout, and people that end up just then eating all the wrong things for the rest of the day anyway. Try and eat within a few hours of waking up, have really good protein and really good plant fibre for breakfast, and eat every 4 to 5 hours some protein and plant fibre. If you're having grains, try and have wheat-free, because they're quite inflammatory to the body. If you're talking about inflammation before, and the things that can cause stress to the adrenals and the digestive system, are wheat products, because they're so processed nowadays, and our body sees wheat as a poison nowadays, because of the way it's been hybridized and genetically modified and changed. The whole structure's changed. So eating really nourishing meals, and trying to avoid the stimulants that keep people going, like coffee and sugar and processed foods, or the things that people tend to grab when they're feeling tired and think, I've just got to get through today, so I want to have this just to get through the next few hours, then I'll have more of it. And so that causes more cravings for the same thing, and it causes a really a big fluctuation with blood sugar levels as well. So the whole thing also with energy and with supporting your adrenal glands is to keep your blood sugar levels very balanced. And that's why you have protein at every meal. It doesn't have to be animal protein. It could be plant protein. It could be eggs. It
Yep.
can be nuts and seeds or legumes, or if you do have animal protein, try and get organic or at least free range or something that's, you know, fairly healthy, even if you get smaller portions. And having that at every meal balances your blood sugar levels. And also, if somebody feels really anxious or stressed, it reduces cortisol, so it can make people feel calmer when they're eating protein foods.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some people, when they feel stressed, they have coffee and sugar and carbohydrate foods like bread or buns or cakes or whatever they like. And that increases your cortisol, makes you feel good, increases your blood sugar levels, but it can also increase anxiety as well and make that person feel more jittery and stressed. And then the blood sugar level goes up and then it crashes really low, and then they crave more of the same stuff, and it just spend this whole day going up and down. So the energy fluctuates up and down as well.
Yes.
And that's really what we want to avoid, is the blood sugar level fluctuations, to have stable energy throughout the day. Nourish your body with foods. And drinking plenty of water. That's something that sounds very boring. And as soon as I start talking to people about water, they sort of shut off, because it's like, yeah, I know. But it's so surprising how many people don't drink enough water. And the reason is, when we're talking about energy, is because it helps our cells in our body, at each organ of our body, produce energy efficiently. So if we're not drinking water, then our organs don't function. And the organ that loves water the most, and this surprises people too, is the liver. And if the liver doesn't function properly, then everything can be upset. If you've got a sluggish liver, you feel sluggish. So yeah, water is another one which is part of your diet, to make sure you're drinking plenty of it.
Yeah, wow, you've given tips galore here, and thank you. What I'd love to go back and just to help people is to eliminate, I guess, the overwhelm, because there's a lot of things that need to happen if they're in adrenal burnout or particularly stressed. And I've found there is just actually really very honestly looking at what you are actually doing in your day.
Yeah.
Where you could possibly be wasting lots of time, social media, you know, whatever. There's usually, if you start mapping, I had to do this, started mapping what I was doing through my day, and being really honest about what was productive, income producing, as well as, you know, good for me, good for my family, as opposed to just being busy and doing nothing.
Yeah.
Getting nowhere. It's like being on the hamster, you know, on the hamster wheel, or chasing your tail, spinning your wheels, all of those sorts of things. And it is really to step off that sometimes, and to be really honest with yourself. I found many hours in my day when I did that.
Yeah, look, I have too. I mean, I think we all have in our lives, and you like you said, you do have to step back and say, okay, I'm busy, but I'm actually not being productive. What am I actually doing? What did I achieve at the end of this? And I think, yeah, social media is part of it, and trying to get all your posts up on Facebook and all those sort of things can be a big time waster. So you've just got to, prioritise, and try not to do them in the evening when you should be turning off all those devices, and it's upsetting your whole hormonal rhythm, because we're all being exposed to these devices all day. And that is the other issue that, one thing I do suggest is that people use a blue light filter for their laptops and their phones and any device that their tablets, anything that they use that they're constantly using into the evening, because we get exposed to this blue light from these devices. And it's the same as the TV. Your TV's also got this UV light, and it actually mimics the sun. So it's sort of like our brain doesn't see the difference. And so that's the other reason why people sometimes can't sleep, is because they're getting exposed to this blue light, which, keeps them awake and keeps them stimulated. And it's surprising how many people are being busy on doing all these things and say, okay, I'm going to do work during the day, but at night time I'm going to get on my phone or on my laptop and just do Facebook things, or, whatever they do. But they're exposed to this blue light, which keeps their cortisol levels high, and that stops them from sleeping, so they don't produce melatonin. And apart from that, it actually causes, it can cause blindness in some cases as well. There has been reports of that, because it burns the back of the retina of the eye. So that's not good. So I highly recommend to everybody to get a blue light filter for their devices, and some of them are free. I have one called iFlux, and because I did a bit of research on it, and I think that's great. It just turns on naturally. You set the time when it gets dark, and it naturally turns on, and it puts a slight filter on your devices at night time.
Wow, I've never heard of it. Never heard of it, Kate. This is
because all these things stimulate our stress hormones, not just being busy, but the things that actually like all the devices, which is how many people sleep with their phones like next to them on their bed, or they doing it as soon as they go to sleep, they're looking up something.
It's funny you should say that, because I've got 2 teenage girls, and all our phones are on the kitchen bench at night time when we go to sleep.
Good.
And mine is actually in the ensuite, because I have the alarms for the house, so I need to be able to hear it. But there's not in our rooms. It's
that's a good idea.
I'm a bit anal with that sort of stuff, but I just need the kids to get their sleep and to rest completely and deeply without distraction. Who wants to be woken up through the night by some conversation that's of no relevance to anyone?
No, it's because it's just because you can as well. Like years ago we weren't available with 24 hours a day. But now
that's right.
Somebody being able to contact us all the time. You don't have to contact us 24 hours a day. So the other thing is Wi-Fi. I highly recommend that people turn off their Wi-Fi if they've got that at home.
Yes. Yep.
You do that, I've always done that, and I know people that don't do it, and they're, it's all too hard, you've got to reset it. You don't have to reset it.
No, you could. You don't have to set. No, you just turn it on and turn it off.
Assuming that happens, but because we're surrounded by Wi-Fi, that actually affects your rhythms of your brain as well. So we get into that relaxed stage at night time with our brain rhythms.
Yeah.
So the Wi-Fi is interrupting that, and that can affect sleep as well. So sleeping in Wi-Fi is not a good idea.
No.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing some awesome practical tips here, and I'd love to just invite our listeners just to check in with themselves too, because ultimately the person that knows their body best is themselves. Yeah. And if their body is showing and shining warning signs at them, it is time to step back and have a look at what's going on and consult a professional if that's what you need to do. Kate, I know that you have a webinar online at the moment to take this a little deeper with people.
So that does explain a little bit what we've talked about today, and why this sort of thing happens, adrenal stress and adrenal fatigue, and I've got some tips on how to reduce that. I may have shared some of those today. I might have other ones. I'm not sure. I don't go into supplements, and I don't remember if I went into food, but it's a fairly short webinar. It's actually designed for people just to listen to while they're having their lunch break, really.
Okay.
So, people are busy. It's not an hour. I think it's about nearly half an hour.
Yep.
And also it's a webinar to educate people, but also there is a special offer at the end. I do have a little program that people can do if they want extra help, if they do feel like that suits them.
Perfect.
So I have online consultations and a program that I'm offering as well. And next year I have a bigger program that will run live and for a bit longer, that people can join if they do want ongoing support with, everything from fatigue to being exhausted, but also with their digestive systems and hormones and anything that's affected by this burnout or exhaustion as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And guys and girls, we will put all of the links to all of Kate's offerings down in the show notes for you, because she also has a free ebook as well.
Oh yes, and the ebook, yeah. So that's got 10 steps to increase your energy, and very practical. So similar things to what we've talked about today, but there's lots of others as well. And actually in the ebook I do go into a little bit about suggestions for supplements, which I'm happy to talk about now too if you want to. But that's something that I think that people tend to shy away from ebooks, but it's very, very easy to read. It's only 10 pages, and there's big writing, so it's not going to take you an hour or anything. It'll probably take you, 10, 15 minutes to read, to skim through. So,
well, 10 or 15 minutes to improve your health and get you back on track. Potentially, it's not a big ask, is it? I'm sure you've thought about that in terms of how much information and value people get from diving a bit deeper into your work.
Yeah, sure. And that's the thing. If you get really good results and it changes your life, and that's what I hear a lot from my clients. I say, well, wow, I can't believe how much my life has changed since I've come to see you. I just feel amazing. I feel better, and it's changed everything. And it changes how everybody responds to people, you know, in their lives as well, like their family and friends. People think they're happier and they enjoy everything. So, yeah, it's actually, you know, a very important investment, I think, especially if you're trying to run a business and a family. You need to be your best self.
Yes.
And that's what I'm trying to help people be, is their best self.
That's exactly right. And you do online consultations as well?
Yeah, sure, I do. So I can just do them singularly. I've got them on my website, the katedrivernaturopath.com.au website. So you can come and see me in the clinic if you're in South Australia. Otherwise, online, I just do singular consultations as well. But they're also part of the programs that you can do. So the programs are actually sort of self-paced over a certain amount of time. But then I offer consultations just to speed up the process of the program.
Yeah.
People get energy, but fast tracking the results so they get a bit more personalised.
Yes, perfect.
I do personalised diet and recipe plan as part of the programs as well, so people don't have to guess what they need to eat, and they know exactly what they can eat for each meal. So that's part of the programs as well.
Yeah, that's awesome, because a lot of people's ill health is purely down to them just not knowing enough about their body and what it needs to function at optimum levels.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Sometimes I'm surprised that people have no idea about some of the organs. And look, that's okay if they don't want to, but if at the same time they're suffering and they're wondering why they feel so terrible, they sort of need to understand. And I mean, I'm quite passionate about educating people so they can be responsible for their health and responsible for their lives. So they can go off and they don't have to keep relying on me. They can go off and say, okay, that's right, I'm feeling like this now, I should be doing this because Kate sort of told me why this is happening, and I understand that, So that's the whole idea, is to, and generally we are really wanting to educate people so you become responsible. It's not just about giving somebody a magic pill and then it's something going away.
Yeah.
And the more you do it, the better you feel, and it becomes easy. And I try and give people easy tips and fit in with what they can cope with and what they can deal with. Some people, they just want to do everything, so they're happy to just do everything, take everything. That's great.
Yeah.
If somebody's, I can only cope with one or two changes and one supplement, well, I'll start with that. So I work with people, and everybody's different.
Yes.
So I suppose that's what people have to realise in themselves, that they have to understand what they can cope with and what they're happy to do.
Yeah, I agree completely. And some are going to be more likely to take advantage and make the changes, and others will just hope it goes away. And it doesn't go away, does it?
No, people ignore it. If you ignore something, it just comes back and hits you harder, doesn't it?
Yeah. It does. So just up to the summary time of the interview today, Kate, and there's a lot of information that you've given people, but there's a couple of takeaways. If there was a couple of takeaways that you'd like to make sure that people really own and they can actually put into their lives right now and see some sort of results, what would they be?
To treat your body with love and respect, and to treat it as your temple and look after it and nourish it. I think what sometimes people expect, they think, I'm feeling terrible, my energy's pretty low, or I just feel crappy this week. But they've got to step back and look at what they've actually fed their bodies, what they put in their mouth, what sort of sleep they've had, if they've enjoyed every day and they're being mindful and enjoying the moments, and having that positive attitude as well. I think that partly that's the beginning of it, because you can't change your life if you're not willing to sort of look at what's wrong and what you're responsible for. So I think at the beginning of it is, if we're looking at physically, the diet is really important to nourish. And even though you don't have to be perfect, nobody's perfect. We all have our little vices and things that we like. But if you're not nourishing your body, then things aren't going to work.
Yeah.
And looking after digestive system. So sometimes people also just assume, oh, I've got a digestive problem, whatever that may be. That's just the way I am, or it runs in the family. Don't say that. Just don't accept it.
I agree.
As well, don't just because you've been told this runs in the family, that runs in the family. Are you always going to have this? Even if a doctor said to you, you're just going to have this, just put up with it. Don't accept it because it can change. And that's what I want people to know. They don't have to feel that way. I mean, I know for myself, before I was a naturopath, when I had chronic fatigue, I had lots of digestive issues. I didn't want to accept it. I was determined to get better, and I did. And I haven't looked back, and that's what I can help people with as well. So nourish your body. Don't accept that people have told you that you have to put up with it. And reduce stress, and look at the ways that help your body, that get, I suppose the things that get you excited as well, because it's not just how you nourish your body physically, but also mentally and emotionally. You want to find things in your life that you're excited about that can help your body produce energy as well. So if your business is boring you, or your social life is boring you, change it. Do something different, and do something that inspires you and excites you, because that will give you energy. And then, I mean, I generally do say if you're struggling yourself, if people think that they've got adrenal burnout, and there's so many symptoms, and people can just feel blah all the time and just not realise what it is. You can do these things yourself, looking at your diet and your lifestyle, and start exercising a bit and getting fresh air, making sure you're not getting overexposed to too many stresses. But if you feel like that's not working, then get the help of a naturopath or a professional that can help you, a natural therapist, because this is why I'm here, to actually find out exactly what's happening for you personally, because everybody's different. It may be that this person has adrenal and thyroid disorder, this other person has a digestive issue that's causing more of their energy problem. This other person might have an allergy to wheat and dairy and really have to get that out of their diet, and that's really draining their energy as well. And the higher your stress levels are, if somebody's stress levels are really high all the time, the more likely they're going to react to something like an allergy or an intolerance, or if if they get a stomach upset regularly, they're more likely to get that sort of thing happening, because stress is high and inflammation's high. So part of that is reducing stress, but also reducing inflammation, and looking at how you can really enjoy your life and have fun. And try and rejuvenate that energy by relaxing when you can and getting good sleep.
I love that. I love that you mentioned don't accept ill health, and don't accept everything that you're told, because at the end of the day, we can change things. We have the power to do that. And I just fill your life up with fun, and have more fun, laugh more. And I know that that's very simplistic, but with the other tips that you've had with in regards to your nutrition and eating protein foods sort of 4-hourly, you can shift things around. And there's plenty of people such as Kate out there that can help you if you really want to get well fast.
And that's it. It does fast track you. Fast track you. Because you're not just trying this and trying that. And I know that I see people quite regularly that say, oh, God, the last 6 months or a year I've tried this and I've Googled this. It may not be specific for something. And other times that the diet system inflammation in your body. And the most important thing that I just want people to know, if stress levels cannot be reduced, there are certain nutrients and herbs that we use as naturopaths that help the body cope with stress. So they're called adaptogen herbs, and they help bear the brunt and that whole axis I talked about for the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal, and thyroid axis. So it helps protect these from stress. So if somebody said, well, this is then maybe that they need to look at something like that to help their body get through that time of stress, and so they don't go downhill even faster because they're not actually protecting their body against it. Hopefully that makes sense. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. So, Kate, thank you very much for coming on the show and helping us with tips to beat burnout. You've given me a lot to think of, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm sure that there are plenty of listeners that will be going and downloading your book and listening to your webinar. I want to wish you all the very best in your business and your passion to serve and help people be well and live full and amazing lives.
Thank you. I think I just lost you there. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, still got you.
Oh, okay. I just didn't hear you for a minute.
That's all right.
Michelle. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you, listeners, for listening. And yeah, I'm more than happy to tell people how to improve their lives and their health, because that's what I'm dedicated to do. I absolutely love what I do, and I want to see everybody feeling healthy and energetic.
Sounds like a good plan. I'm in. So guys and girls, reach out and connect with someone that inspires you to take quantum leaps and bounds in your life. Don't accept anything less. You can find me, Michelle Reinhardt, at mindsetenergyandhealing.com, and you'll find Kate and I in our beautiful community at Entrepreneurs Globally Unite, and all of the links that you need to propel you into an incredible healthy lifestyle and beat the burnout are below. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Once again, Kate, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Michelle, for having me. It's been great.
My pleasure. See you, everyone.
Bye.